Odin's forgotten rune chanting technique for magical spells. Hi, this is Mahadeva, the Thunder Wizard. Welcome to the Thunder Wizard channel. Today I'm going to be sharing with you some incredibly powerful information. And I haven't talked about runes for a while because I've been caught up with a lot of other paranormal, powerful, spiritual, shamanic experiences. But runes by far, I'm just going to make this statement. Bear in mind, I do things like I work with Vedic mantra, Vedic ritual, Vedic astrology. I work with Taoist energy magic, spirit fighting magic, exorcism, and I've been working directly with higher dimensional beings for the past 3 years now. So what I'm about to say is very meaningful. There is nothing more powerful than working with runes if you know what you're doing. And Odin is the Lord of the Runes. As you know, if you're familiar with Germanic mythology, which, by the way, just because I use the word mythology doesn't mean it's made up. Mythology means that here's my experience of mythology. Mythology is beings in higher dimensions want to give knowledge to humans in the third dimension. And the way that they give multi-dimensional truths in one bite-sized package is in mythological lore. So true mythology is not something somebody made up to explain nature. I still hear people who are into Germanic mythology, Viking mythology, and they even will present themselves as Viking shamans or whatever, and they will say that. They will say that this myth is about, the changing from winter to spring. Listen, true mythology is multi-dimensional spiritual truth that is given to humans in a story form that their three-dimensional mind can accept. Shamans have always had the ability to take these multi-dimensional stories, and by analyzing the words, the meanings of the words, the context, as well as being given information from the ancestors, from the higher dimensional beings, they will be able to figure out what the meaning is. For example, people think that by reading Lao Tzu, you're going to understand how to be at peace. But actually, if you really know what you're doing, you can read Lao Tzu, and Lao Tzu will teach you, just by reading certain things that sound really wonderful about how to have no mind and be at peace. He's actually teaching you how to do very specific things with your body to achieve immortality. But unless you get that information from a shaman who either was taught that or has been transmitted that energy, you'll never know that. This is the nature of mythology. Odin is, in my experience, by far the most powerful shamanic figure I've ever encountered. And that's saying a lot. And so Odin is the key master to runic power. There's no shortage of people who can chant the runes, all 24 of them, and get benefits from them. Don't get me wrong, there's plenty of benefit just by drawing the runes, meditating on them, chanting them. But when you understand Odin's secret technique of chanting them, using them, visualizing them, you actually gain access to higher dimensional awareness of the building blocks of the universe. And this kind of magic is not given to just anybody. But we live in a special time right now. The time that we live in, we are shifting out of this current third dimension. 1,000 years ago, the stuff that I'm going to teach you now was not taught openly. There might have been a few shamans around who knew it, And they employed that, but they didn't, back then you didn't share that kind of knowledge with just anybody because somebody could use it against you. But right now, the human race is uniting against the dark force elite that are running this deal. And make no mistake, the dark force elite have access to very dark, powerful magic. So it takes powerful magic to overcome that. So we're going to be talking about that. Make sure you stay till the end of the video. I'm going to be going through a lot of different things, and I do have a list that will help me keep on track as I go through this. I'm going to talk about Odin. I'm going to talk about the runes. I'm going to talk about why Odin was the being who was able to unlock the runes. And then I'm going to share with you a very powerful ritual that you can do to unlock the power of the runes. And then finally, I'm going to share with you information on where you can find this secret chanting technique that very few people have ever uncovered about how to really unlock the runes. I will give all that information. Stick around till the end of the video. If you're new to the channel, what I need you to do is I need you to subscribe, like, and comment. If you don't do that, YouTube won't pick up on the algorithms, and I need this message to get out. So subscribe, like, comment, hit the bell button, share it with your friends. I need you to go and check out 2 playlists. The Maoshan Qigong has moved to the shop, which we'll talk about. But the other 2 playlists, the Interdimensional Meditation and the 12 Steps to 5D, those will always be free. You can find those on the YouTube channel. Start doing them now, because I'll get into those techniques in other videos, but trust me, just start doing them. And go to thunderwizard.com, subscribe to the Warrior 90-Day Lightning Qigong. That information, those practices will magnify the secret chanting technique that I'm going to be sharing with you in this video. Actually, I'm going to be sharing with you how you can get your hands on that material. All right, so let's get into it. Odin's forgotten rune chanting technique for magical spells. So Woden is his original name, and Wodanaj was his original name in the ancient Germanic tongue. And Wodanaj means he who is filled with shamanic fury. Now, fury back then didn't mean what it means today. So when we talk about somebody who's furious or full of fury, what we mean is that they're full of homicidal rage, something like that. But that's not what was happening with Odin. This is also seen with the deity Rudra. Rudra is the howler. This is in Vedic understanding. Now, you can believe this or not. I can tell you from not only research into Indo-European spirituality, which, by the way, the Germanic tradition and the ancient Vedic tradition are both sister traditions from an original Indo-European tradition. And so Rudra the Howler is the Vedic version of Wodanaj. Wodanaj, as I said, means he who is filled with the fury of shamanic awareness. So there is a being that appeared in the spiritual practices of both the Germanic tribes and the Vedic tribes right around at the same time. This had to have been, a couple thousand years ago, easily. And before that time, the Germanic people worshipped Tihu, which comes from the root for sky and divinity, the word divinity, D-U. Same word for Zeus. Zeus isn't really his name. Zeus's name is D. He was actually called D or Dion. Zeus was the vocative. When you called him, you called Zeus. His name was D. He meant the sky. So that was the king of the gods in the Indo-European tradition. In the Vedic tradition, it was Dieus Pita, the sky father. Deus, Zeus, Diupiter, Dieus Pita. So the Roman, the Greek, the Vedic, and the Germanic all had the king of the gods. His name was Diu, the sky. But right around 2,000 years ago, this entity appeared who eventually would take over the pantheon. And this happened in both the Germanic and the Vedic traditions. And I think the reason for that is by the time that 2,000 years ago came around and this being emerged, the Greek and the Romans had already become so disconnected because they were empires. They had left their shamanic, tribal, spiritual associations with nature and with the gods, and they had become empires, and so they weren't able to interact on as deep a level. But the Germanic tribes were still living in nature and they were still connected. The Vedic tribes have never walked away. Modern Hinduism is the modern expression of the original Indo-European Vedic tradition. Some of the gods are different, and that happens in polytheist religions. New gods will show up. New beings will show up. Gods are being created all the time. This is something that's important to know. I didn't know this until recently. But conscious beings, wherever they are in the multiverse, when they achieve a level of power and awareness through their own spiritual powers, they become deities. And those deities will show up in religions and in societies. And this is what happened 2,000 years ago. This deity known as Shiva emerged in the Vedic tradition, who became the king of the gods. Brahma was taken away as somebody, almost nobody worships Brahma anymore, the creator. Vishnu, the preserver, and Shiva. Shiva became the king of the gods. In the Germanic tradition, it was Tiu, the sky god, Tiwaj. And what happened is, seemingly out of nowhere, this new god shows up, Wodanaj, and he becomes the king of the gods. How does he do that? He did that through the absolutely typical shamanic sacrifice of self. And what happened, as we know according to the mythological story, is that Odin, Wodanaj, he sacrificed himself to himself on the tree of knowledge. And after that self-sacrifice, he had an epiphany. And as a result of that, he saw the runes. The runes were revealed to him, and he, quote, picked them up, which means that they merged with him. And now that he is the master of the runes. Now, somebody might say runes are similar to mantra, but while I can attest, having been, worked very deeply in both of those, Vedic mantra and in runes, I can attest definitely they're in, similar category, but they're not the same. And I do not know of any tradition anywhere that has anything exactly like or more powerful than the runes. So if somebody were to ask me, Mahadeva, do you have a preference? If I give you the choice between doing this mantra routine for 40 days that will give you this, and this, or if you were to do a rune ritual for, a few days or one day, which would you pick? If it was about the ability to gain power, the most amount of power in the quickest way, I would, without hesitation, do runes. My experience, and now I know why this is, but my experience with runes is that when I chant runes, the entire universe I become that rune and my whole world becomes torn apart. I go through a shamanic experience. It doesn't matter what rune it is, whether it's Fehu or whether it's Yuhuaj or whether it's, it doesn't matter, Uruj. If I chant it or if I talk about it and I teach it, I channel that rune, and then I have to be willing to go through the self-transformation of that. Now, that's because I happen to be a wizard, a shaman. That's my job in this lifetime. So my nervous system is aligned that way. And a lot of people, they can chant the runes a lot more safely than I can. So I don't chant them unless I'm dead serious about something. And I have done rituals. I have been downloaded some rituals. By the way, I'll give you some information on how you can get a ritual that was downloaded to me directly from Odin, which I've shared with a few people, that is only for absolute emergencies or if somebody's absolutely, completely committed to gaining power and going through the transformation of that. If you wait till the end of the video, I'll tell you how you can get a hold of that information. I'm not going to put it on this video for obvious reasons. Because the fact of the matter that the ritual contains things that I wouldn't put on YouTube anyway. So stay tuned for that. I'll talk about that. So Odin sacrifices himself to himself. Now, that you won't find anywhere. A lot of people understandably make the conflation that Odin's sacrifice on the Tree of Life is like Jesus' sacrifice on the cross, which is absolutely, completely incorrect. Jesus' sacrifice on the cross, which by the way, I don't think happened. I don't think there was a literal Jesus that existed. And I talk about that. If you look on my channel, you can type in, go search for, did Jesus really exist? And I give you historical proof that it's impossible for the man talked about in the Gospels could never have existed. Historically, it's impossible. Go check out that video if you want to know. But a lot of people conflate the two, and I did myself, and I have a book. If you go to my website, michaelwilliamdenny.com, I have a book, Odin Says Jesus Was a Coward, and I was in shamanic connection with Odin. And I asked Odin himself, I said, what's the difference between Jesus sacrificing himself on the cross and you sacrificing yourself on the world tree? And Odin showed up and he gave me an earful, and I write down in the book exactly what he said. But what I learned was that Odin doesn't sacrifice himself for other people. And that is a more powerful sacrifice, because what Jesus supposedly did was the height of codependence. He sacrificed himself for other people that hadn't earned it and didn't want it, according to the Gospels anyway, didn't want it and didn't deserve it. And even if we believe that story, look at the world. His sacrifice has accomplished nothing. You have some people running around claiming to be his followers and claiming to be saved by his sacrifice, but I don't see anything in their lives that indicates any awareness. They're full of fear, they're full of anger, they're bitter, they're judgmental. And so what good did that sacrifice do? Well, it's because that sacrifice never happened. It's made up. And it couldn't have happened because it's based on an inaccurate understanding of what spiritual sacrifice is. So Odin didn't sacrifice himself for anybody else. And ironically, the result of that is he created a pathway for people to achieve his level of awareness because of what he did for himself. And it's often written, Odin sacrificed himself, small s, to himself, big S. Meaning he sacrificed his third dimensional ego for his soul identity. Now, past 3 years, I have been spending a lot of time in higher dimensions, and I have seen, and believe me or not, it's okay, I have seen what the soul is, and I've seen where the soul comes from. And what I've found out is that every single human on this planet is connected directly to what some people would call God. In fact, you are God. You are God. Every single one of us, if we go deep within and we follow our spiritual essence, we take that all the way back, we will find that we are God. And when somebody is in the presence of what other people would call God, when you look at that, I've been there, I've seen it, I've experienced it. When you look at it, what you find is that this one being called God is actually made up of every single conscious being in the multiverse. And so it's like it's this ball of light, and there's an infinite number of rays going out in every direction, and each one of those rays is a conscious individual. The farther away it goes from its center of itself, it goes into lower dimensional frequencies. The farther you go into lower dimensional frequencies, the more isolated that ray becomes. And that's why in the third dimension, which is a very low frequency, we have the experience that we are individuals. So what Odin did, and it's very possible that the being called Odin, the being called Shiva, may very well have been a human soul. I'm not saying it has to be. It could have been a conscious soul of anywhere in the multiverse. But it very well could have been a human. And what this conscious being did, whatever their manifestation was, is that they sacrificed their experience of being an isolated, separate self, and they sacrificed it to their larger self, which was this infinite consciousness. Now, what that means, this is absolutely revolutionary. This is why Odin was revolutionary, was that the meaning behind this is that if you are able to sacrifice your experience of being an isolated individual, and you are prepared to die to that isolated experience, there is the possibility that you yourself can become the most powerful deity. You already are. So the gods out there, Odin, Thor, in the Germanic pantheon, Odin, Thor, Freyja, Frigga, Freya, Balder, these are conscious beings that through perhaps hundreds of thousands of years of spiritual discipline have made their way back towards their self, their true self. And the result of that is they function on higher dimensional planes. And they're still individuals, so we can still worship each individual deity. People ask me this all the time, and these are usually neo-pagans. Unfortunately, neo-pagans, neo-heathens come out of the Christian tradition, so they're very dualistic. They either want to know, is this a real person or is this just a symbol? And I say they're both, and people can't handle that. Now, if you talk to a Vedic practitioner in India, they've never left. The East Indians have never abandoned their Indo-European polytheist knowledge. If you ask any of them, is Shiva an individual? Yeah. Is Shiva just a symbol? Yeah. How can they be both? Well, because they are. They don't have any problem saying yes to both of those. People in the West do, because they're Christians, and Christians have dualistic thinking. They've thrown away Jesus and they've replaced it with Thor, and that doesn't make them have the ability to understand these concepts. That's okay. Everybody has to learn. I had to learn as well. So I'm here to tell you that Odin is a conscious being. He's a conscious being in the universe, and he, at whatever level he was, he might very well have been a third dimensional being, perhaps even a human. He made the spiritual sacrifice where he committed himself to disengaging from the dualist perspective of I'm an individual, and he went to his highest expression of infinity. And when that happened, he became Wodanaj. He became he who was consumed with the fury of shamanic self-awareness. And at that moment, he became the god of liberation. And as a result of that, now we don't know, it doesn't say that he was looking for the runes. He was looking for self-awareness. He was looking for shamanic initiation and self-awareness. And what ended up happening is that the runes were revealed to him. Now, runes have multiple interpretations. I'll get into that, but one of them is mysteries. So, and not just the mysteries of the like I have this now mysterious knowledge of things. No, it's the actual building blocks of the universe. Now, anybody who does any deep dive into any polytheist tradition of any merit will find at the root of it, you will find a teaching that says that physical manifestation is a sonic vibration. Physics backs this up as well. Everything, my mouse manifests this way because whatever, materials are in here vibrate at certain frequencies. You have a specific frequency. Everything is a specific frequency. Some people even, I've heard people say this, that matter is frozen light. And we know light is nothing more than a frequency. It's not a wave, it's not a particle, it's a frequency. And so what happened is that Odin was given knowledge of the frequencies that govern manifestation. Specific seed sounds for every frequency that you can imagine on, what physical, matter, psychological, and spiritual. The 3 8s: physical, psychological, and spiritual. And as I talk about in my book, Rune Shamanism, which you can get at michaelwilliamdenny.com, I saw this. I mean, I didn't have the guts to come out and say the level of revelation I had when I wrote that book, but I saw this from a spiritual perspective, from a wizard's perspective. I saw this. And what I saw was that the runes, the 3 8s, before the Germanic tribespeople had any written, alphabet, they had these 24 seed sound. They were either, syllables or sounds. And it was taught from father to son because they were shamans. And if you mastered the runes, you could master reality. And so that is why when you read before, just at the end of the Germanic tribal period, you read from Roman historians like Tacitus that it was the man of the house who would actually create runes, carve them, and then he was the priest of the family and he would do rune readings. And he would find out what the best course of action was. So that shows right there that the man of the house was the priest of the house. So from father to son, the leader of the house would teach this knowledge to their sons. And the sons were supposed to be the priest and spiritually protect and take care of the family. So Odin is the father of the human race in that regard. And the runes are for everybody. They're for all people all over the world. It's not a cultural thing. If you're into runes because you only want to be involved with what you believe your culture was, you're not going to understand what these things are. There's other things I could say, but I'll leave that for other videos about that. So Odin became king of the gods. Now, this same being also emerged in Vedic tradition as Shiva. The reason why that's important is because both of this representation in both the Germanic and the Vedic tradition, he has the same name. And it is an Indo-European word. In the Vedic, it's Ugra. In the Germanic, it's Ug. And Ug means terrifying. Ugra also means terrifying, furious. And again, what we're dealing with is the fury of the individual who is dying to their limited self. And in the Vedic tradition, Shiva has his own sort of vibe for that. He appeared that way for that Indo-European culture. For the Germanic tradition, he appeared in a more mercurial fashion, which was even more of the left-hand path magician. Now, don't get me wrong, there is plenty of left-hand path magic in the Vedic tradition with the various forms of Shiva, of Ugra. But in the Germanic tradition, you have to understand who this being is. Now, who is Shiva in the Vedic tradition? He's the destroyer. Doesn't mean he destroys things. It means he transforms. This is exactly what happened to Odin. He sacrificed himself to himself on the tree of life, and he died. He died to his smaller version of himself. And as a result of that, he was transformed. He was transformed into Wodanaj. And it says that he sacrificed himself to himself, and screaming, he took up the runes. That means that experience of death. He had to have been in such a committed, frenzied state, which we would have seen as rage, as terrifying, in his Ug state of terrifying, that he was destroying that in himself which was temporary. Now, from a physics perspective, I can tell you what was happening. He was shifting from the third dimension up to a higher dimensional state. And back then, 2,000 years ago, it was a lot different than today. Today, we have access to what my ancestors called the elves, the shining ones, light beings. I mean, elf is translated literally as light being. And who are the light beings? The light beings are any conscious being that is in a higher dimension. Right now, because Earth is going through this massive shift in consciousness, the Earth is surrounded by beings from higher dimensions, from all over the multiverse, who are gathered here to help humanity shift up. And they are the light beings. They are the elves. But we are now seeing them for what they really are. Odin was a being, very possibly a human, who shifted himself to a higher dimensional state. And when that happened, he was able to hear and see the sonic vibrations that made up the universe. Not just the physical universe, but the psychological universe and the spiritual universe. Those are the 3 eights. So, coming back to Odin's secret, forgotten chanting technique for magical spells. There is a method that I've not only found in the runic tradition, because when you understand what the word rune means, the method is there in the word, and only a shaman and a wizard would have been able to pick that up. But that same method was also found in other traditions around the world. One of them was the Taoist tradition. They figured it out, but even the Taoists today miss it. I found old texts, and I saw what they were doing, and there's a lot of people call, chanting, Taoist chanting. They don't understand what it means. They don't understand the technique. I figured it out. I practiced it, and I did it. And I have seen this also in the runic tradition, and I practiced it. And I'm telling you, the level of power that you can achieve with this is, it's exponential, the amount of power that you can have. Because what this technique does is it gives you the ability to chant the runes on an astral plane level. Why is that important? Because on the physical level, you can chant, and as far as your voice goes, it'll penetrate into the physical around you. It'll penetrate your body. If you chant runes out loud, it'll penetrate your physical body. And it'll be, very powerful, very healing. This is why there are people who can chant the runes out loud every day and doesn't mess with them. I chant the runes, I'm going to be in a world of shamanic transformation, and it's going to be difficult for me to function. But I know what this technique is. I know the original technique that Odin discovered. So when you do this on the astral level, you are at the level of the master programmers. In Matrix, there's the master programmer, the architect. When you chant this at the level of the astral realm, you are acting like God. You are the architect. You literally have access to the programs that are creating not just physical reality, but psychological and spiritual. Now, what I have learned in my past 3.5 years of my shamanic practice is that this third dimensional realm, we think when we physically die, our body dies and we become a spirit. That's not what happens. When you shift out of the third dimension through death or through spiritual transformation, which does happen, some people, I believe this happened to Odin. I believe that one day that Odin was a physical three-dimensional being walking around, and then when he sacrificed himself, he shifted out of this frequency and he was in a higher dimension, which meant that he could walk through walls and show up and do whatever, and people worshipped him as a god, and rightly so. And he devoted himself to helping humans achieve liberation. Because it's the same being as Shiva. Shiva is all about liberation. Shiva, who is Shiva? Shiva's the guy who walks around in where? In burial grounds. He's the guy who doesn't have any spiritual rules. He'll hang out with anybody. He'll hang out with prostitutes, with criminals, with murderers, with drug addicts. He'll hang out with anybody, because he doesn't have any of that religious trappings, because he's seen beyond the dimensional barriers, and he realizes that everybody has that same ability that he has, which is to be the ultimate, to be connected to the purest form, the deepest, most powerful form of consciousness, and still have an identity. And this is true with Odin as well. In the Thunder Path, as I teach it, in the Thunder Wheel in the north, is where Odin is placed. And Odin is placed there because the north represents the first manifestation in the physical realm where nothing is physically present. It's just an idea. It's just a potential. In other words, if you were to walk into the mist world of the 9 worlds, you would disappear. Your body would disintegrate. You would go into pure potentiality. Odin is the only being who can be in that state and still have a personality. That's how powerful he is. That's why he's Wodanaj. That's why experiencing him, you experience him as this being full of rage, but it's not rage. It's, to us, it feels that way because it destroys our limited third dimensional personality. But my interactions with Odin is that he's got a tremendous sense of humor, and he's always got this shit-eating grin on his face. He is not this angry. He appears that way only when you're attached to your third dimensional delusion of having, your own identity. But once you go beyond that, you find out that Odin isn't furious at all. He's actually he's full of love, and he's very happy, and he's got a tremendous sense of humor. But you won't experience that until you die to yourself. So again, later on, I'm going to show you a specific ritual where you can interact directly with Odin if you're willing to do this. If you're prepared to die to your third dimensional limitations. And I don't say that lightly. It is not a pleasant experience. So it's not for the faint of heart. And again, if you want to contact me personally, I'll give you a ritual that Odin gave me, which I can't talk about on YouTube, and I wouldn't even if I could, because I wouldn't give that to anybody unless they were prepared to go through what that ritual has the potential to do to you. So let's talk about the runes. By the way, in the background, you can hear a runic chant. I mean, I can call it a mantra, but the truth is that this was downloaded to me personally. So while it's technically a mantra, it doesn't come from the Vedic tradition. And the being that channeled this sound to me also taught me methods of chanting runes, which means that the runes that Odin saw were not Germanic letters. The runes that Odin saw and heard were the sound vibrations of the universe. A higher dimensional being from a completely different planet, in fact, a completely different species, was teaching me how to chant the runes, which means that these runes are not up for interpretation. It's not a cultural fad that the Germanic people went through. Odin tapped into this specific science. And while it's, like I said, it's in the same category as Vedic mantra, it's different. It's a science all by itself. And it's a science that is so powerful that beings from other dimensions and other planets use this same science. The runes are far more powerful than than we can possibly understand. And I believe when we shift into this new reality, runes are going to be something that people use not because it's a cultural thing, but because it's a scientific, sonic science of manifestation and transformation. All right, so I've done a lot of talking. Let's get into the list here. So to activate the chanting technique for advanced magic, I'm going to give you a personal magical ritual that you can use to activate this. I was going to teach you the runes behind what you're hearing in the background. I'll do that very briefly. I can make another video on that. So the first sound, the sound is huar. So here's the runic understanding of it. The first one is hagalaj, which means self-initiated transformation. There are two runes of transformation. One is hagalaj, and the other one is yuhwaj. Yuhwaj is when you go through transformation that you didn't choose. So it's usually experienced as conflict, but it's transformation. You didn't choose it, it happens to you. Hagalaj is healing because you choose to be self-examining and you choose to have self-awareness. So this sound is hagalaj. Uruj, which is descending power. Ansuj, which is divine communication. And Raito, which is solar path, ride. You ride a horse. The sun rides in the sky. It rides the same path. It means spiritual law. So huar means self-transformation. The power of self-transformation that gives you divine communication to follow the true spiritual law. Hu is also the sound of earth. This is found in multiple traditions around the world. So it means earth communicating with the sun, the solar flash event. Hu-ar. And if you understand the runes behind it, you can chant the mantra Huar, or if you understand the runes, you can even unlock further, get into the science of this solar flash event that we are experiencing. Anyway, that's for another video coming up, but I wanted to just give that because I thought it was cool. All right, so to activate the chanting technique for advanced magic, on the night before the full moon, go out into the moonlight and chant Ong Woden at least 24 times. Now, You want to go the night before the full moon, because once it's the full moon's already hit its peak and it's starting to wax. You don't know that because you're out in front of the full moon. You can't tell the difference. But the moon is its most powerful just before it hits full. So you want to go out there the night before that it's a full moon, because that's when the energy's really expanding. And you want to chant Om Woden. Now, here I'll give you the science behind this. Whenever you've heard of seed sounds. Om is one, Hrim, Shrim, Krim, Kling. If you're familiar with Vedic mantra, these are seed sounds. And at the end, there's this NG sound. Now, most people chant Om with an M, but it's actually got a little dot on the top of it, which means it's an NG sound. Now, whenever you take any sound and put an NG at the end of it, an sound, you get the essence of that. So, for instance, my spiritual name is Mahadeva. So if you wanted to get the essence of me, you could chant Mang. And this is why, a lot of deities, for instance, the sound for Indra is Ing. Ing is a rune, but it was also the original seed sound for the Vedic people before they chanted Om. And when did that happen? Around the same time that this being known as Shiva, known as Odin, showed up. So the seed sound for Odin is Om. O-N-G, Om. And when you chant Om, you are tapping into the essence of Odin. So the next word, Woden. Woden, as I said, E-N, you find this in English, the word golden, made of gold. Woden means made of woad. Woad is shamanic ecstasy, shamanic fury. So chanting Om Woden means that you're tapping into the power of Odin, and then you are chanting his essence. It's not just his name, it's his essence. Om Woden. Those are 3 syllables. Whenever you chant something that has 3 syllables, you tap into its energy. So you're tapping directly into the energy of the manifestation of Odin. When you chant this with honest intent, Odin has to appear. You actually have power over him because you're chanting his name, Om. When you do that, he has to appear. Om Woden. He will show up. You're going to chant that at least 24 times. What is 24? It's the 3/8. So when you chant Om Woden, do it in 3 sets of 8. You can be thinking of the runes. He will come. He is the master of the runes. So whenever you use runes, Odin is there. So Om Woden 24 times. Guaranteed Odin will show up, whether you see it or don't, and you very likely will feel something. And then you're going to bring to mind, because now you've summoned Odin and he is there. He is fully focused on you. He knows, because you're there in the moon and he is who he is. He knows what your intent is. He knows that you are there for self-transformation and you are dead serious about this. It's okay if you can be a little bit frightened about it, that's okay, but this is serious magic here. And if you take it seriously, you'll find out. So bring to mind your false limitations of your 3D character for Odin to destroy. What I've learned in the past 3 years is that human identity, my name is Michael William Denny. I was born in 1963, Southern California. I surf, I did blah, blah, blah. That is a character. That is a character that my soul wrote so that I could come to the 3rd dimension and have a 3rd dimensional experience. It is not who I am. When Odin sacrificed himself, he sacrificed whoever he was. His name, his history, his background, his likes, his dislikes, his limitations, his fears, his emotional attachments. He sacrificed all of those things to his true eternal self. And as a result of that, he was successful. And he is no longer that person. He is now the only thing he is. He is the being that is made up of the fury of self-awareness, Odin. So when you chant Ong Odin 24 times, bring to mind your false limitations. Now that could be anything. You're insecure, you're unhappy, you're lonely, you're poor, you're sick, you're old, I don't care what it is. Whatever it is you think about that bothers you, that is an attachment to, it's a reaction to a false character. It's a character of the written script that you think you are. So have at least one, you can have more than one, but be specific. Have one thing that really bothers you and be fearless. Don't go to him and say, oh, Odin, I want you to make me rich. Odin's going to be like, come on, man. Go there and say, I've got this attachment, self-devaluation. I don't like this about me. I want to be this. I'm attached to that. I'm afraid of this. I'm, like I said, you think that you're poor, you think that you're insecure, you think that nobody loves you, you think you're a piece of crap, you're full of judgment. Whatever thing you have, bring that and say, Odin, I want you to help me destroy this so that I can become like you. So bring to mind your false limitations of your 3D character for Odin to destroy. Then speak these words. Odin, I choose to sacrifice myself to myself. And then say, I am Odin. I am Odin. I am Odin. You can use whichever name you want. Wodanaj, Woden, Wotan, I don't care. And neither does Odin. Because you are Odin. This is Odin's message. Unlike Jesus. Jesus' message is, you are Jesus. That's not his message. Jesus' message is, I'm Jesus. I'm at the right hand of God. You're a sinful piece of crap, but don't worry. I took care of it for you. Worship me. Odin doesn't say worship me. Odin says become me. I told you how to do it. You can surpass me. In fact, Odin would want you to surpass him. He would look at you in awe if you were able to do what he did and more than he did. And then he would chant your name. The true gods have no competition with each other. And they have no competition with you. They don't compare themselves to you. They don't expect you to bow down to them. They expect you to rise up to where they are. That's why our ancestors, when you go back in history, and the Christians were going to the Anglo-Saxons and trying to get them to convert to Jesus because Jesus was supposedly this powerful war god. That's why many early Germanic warriors became Christians, because they thought Jesus was a war god. And there's a historical reference recording of an Anglo-Saxon warrior, and a priest was telling him to convert to Jesus. Jesus will give you power in war and all that. And he said, what'll happen if I accept Jesus? What will happen to my ancestors who weren't Christian? And they said, oh, you won't see them again. They're in hell. And he goes, well, I would much rather be in hell with those noble people than to give that up to be with you. He knew exactly what the hell was going on. So the idea that you give up your power, that you bow down to anything, is absolutely ridiculous to our ancestors. Not because they don't have any respect, quite the opposite. It's because the gods that we worshipped, that our ancestors worshipped, didn't want you to bow to them. They wanted you to become them. They wanted you to surpass them. This was the ethic of our tribal ancestors. So when you speak the words, I am Odin, I am Odin, I am Odin, you are making the decision that you are going to go through whatever is necessary to sacrifice your limited ego to your highest self, which is none other than Odin himself. When you go deep into the heart of every human and you go deep enough, you will find Odin. So the idea is just you already are that. You have to transform. You have to die to the illusion that you're not that. That is what self-sacrifice is all about. Okay, so there's some resources I've got here. So necessary rune resources to fully learn Odin's secret rune chanting method. Go to thunderwizard.com and click on the shop and get Rune Shamanism videos number 1 through 3. The third video contains the chanting technique and that I've also put in the book Rune Shamanism, which you can get at michaelwilliamdenny.com. So the shop looks like this. This is the latest. It's changing all the time because I'm uploading new things. So when you go to thunderwizard.com, you will come to, and you click on shop there. There's home, collections, and shop. Click on shop. You will see Rune Shamanism. These are videos I made 10 years ago. Now, I've been practicing this method for over 10 years, and I can tell you that I did not realize when I put those videos on DVD, back when we had DVDs, I did not realize the power of this method, and I did not realize that I was working directly with Odin, that Odin himself was transferring the knowledge to me that hadn't been seen in thousands of years. So accept it or don't. The one way to do is not take my word for it, but to practice it and prove it. You want to find out if what I'm telling you is true? Do it for yourself. I guarantee you, if you follow the directions that I give you, especially on the third video, if you follow my directions to the letter and you do that and you chant the runes with that technique, I guarantee you, you're going to have an experience. I don't know what that experience will be, but your life will change. Even if you think nothing happened, I guarantee you your life is going to change. Absolutely. And it is my belief that these methods, which have been forgotten for thousands of years, which have been given back to me and who knows whom else. I don't think I'm the only person this knowledge is being given to. I'm the only person I know of. But I'm quite certain that when we shift to this higher world, these techniques are going to be just common knowledge. When you want to manifest something out of thin air, you'll use this technique. This will be one of them. So go there and get all of those, and especially get number 3, which has the technique on it. And the book Rune Shamanism. And I also recommend that you subscribe to the Warrior 90-Day Lightning Qigong, which is at thunderwizard.com. In that, you will have access to the Shamanism Mastery Course. And I have many videos where I talk about runes, chanting. I give you rune rituals, all kinds of very, very powerful rune teachings. So that is an invaluable resource as well. And it's something you won't find anywhere else. Listen, I've never been, there are guys out there, some of them famous rune teachers, and really all that they've done, they have some good stuff, but I'm just going to be honest with you. What they've done is they've taken the academic version that they learned in college from a historian, and that I've said in the video, I've said that there's zero historical evidence for the things that academics say. When academics say that the runes were first invented when the Germanic tribes were trying to copy the alphabet of the Mediterraneans, it's completely, totally conjecture. There's no truth behind it. And the fact of the matter is that if you go anywhere in the Mediterranean world, the alphabet is the same, including in in Israel, the Roman, Greek, Hebrew, it's A, B, C, D, E, F, G, or something very close to that. And that's not what you see with the runes. The runes are F, U, T, H, A, R, K. That is a very specific sequence. And it means that they already had an oral tradition. They wouldn't have changed the order of the sounds to, if they were borrowing it from somebody else. So which is what was downloaded to me, that this was a specific tradition that went back tens of thousands of years, and I believe it was given directly to our ancestors from higher dimensional beings who already knew this science. Don't believe me? That's okay. Prove me wrong by doing it. If you follow my instructions, you will experience it. It's completely up to you. I offer it to you. And once again, you can go to thunderwizard.com, click on shop, and you'll see them there. And my book is at michaelwilliamdenny.com. And if you go to thunderwizard.com and subscribe to the Warrior 90-Day Lightning Qigong, you'll have access to that practice, which I won't get into, which will also empower you to chant the runes, but you'll have access to the rune shamanism stuff that I put up I go through all that stuff. Go check it out. So, oops, sorry about that. So, subscribe to the Warrior 90-Day Lightning Qigong to access members-only videos on runes and rune magic. Now, for the dangerous Odin ritual, that is something I haven't written down anywhere. This was something that was given to me from Odin directly. And it involves doing some scary left-hand magic stuff, which I wouldn't put up on YouTube, so I'm not going to share it. I wouldn't share it in public anyway. So if you're dead serious and you want to be initiated into the path of Odin, the true left-hand path of self-sacrifice and self-transformation, I will give you this ritual. To do that, you go to get a session with me. You can either become an apprentice if you're one of my apprentices, which you can get at thunderwizard.com, and we're on a communication basis, and I talk to you and I teach it to you and help you understand, and I know that you're serious about it. I will teach you. You can also get a session with me if you're really serious about it, and for that you would go to career.thunderwizard.com. You scroll to the bottom, and at the bottom you can purchase a one-off session with me. In that session, if I am not convinced that this is good for you, I will give you your money back if I decide not to give you the ritual. Very likely you'll be able to convince me that you're serious about it, and I will give you this ritual that, I did this ritual, and I wasn't wanting harm to come to anybody, but somebody ended up in the hospital. I had a real problem in my life, and there was somebody that was in my way, and I did this ritual, and that person ended up in the hospital. So just to let you, that doesn't mean that the gods were trying to physically harm him. It means that the energy that was released was that powerful. Now, that person ended up evolving as well, so there was a block within them, so it wasn't an attack on them. But I'm just letting you know how powerful this ritual is. When you release Odin to free you, and you are involved in a self-transformation experience, the level of energy is off the charts. So I wanted to bring the power of Odin back into the Thunder Wizard path, because we've been talking about a lot of other stuff, and Odin deserves to be back into the spotlight, because we are living in the time of Odin. The power of Odin is more available than it ever has been in human history. And so I offer these tools to you. There's the technique, the chanting technique, the moonlight ritual, and the other things. Again, go to the shop to get the third video. I recommend you get all of them, but people are going to do whatever they're going to do. The third video gives you the technique, and that's all. So remember, question your reality. Online classes and personal mentorship at thunderwizard.com. All right, that's it. I went through this. I really enjoyed it. We'll do more of this stuff going forward. So thank you, my friends. Please remember, whoever you are, that you are the most powerful being that has ever existed. The universe would not exist without you. And in fact, the universe needs you to exist. You are the most powerful, you are the most loved, the most cherished, the most necessary being in the entire universe. And it has always been that way. You are simply having a third dimensional experience, and I'm here to help you in any way that I can to find your true power, the power that Odin wants you to have, which is you are God, you are Odin, you are Shiva. With that, my friends, I wish you all the best. I bow before your sacred presence, and I acknowledge your divinity, and I thank you for allowing me to even exist, because if it weren't for your projection, I wouldn't exist and this video wouldn't exist. So thank you so much for that. I look forward to speaking with you and meeting with you. If you have the chutzpah, if you have the stones to become a true follower of Odin, I will be more than happy to share with you what I know. That's it, my friends. I will see you next time. Take care.